What's up, Agents of Chaos? It's me, Gage Greenwood, and look, I still got my Christmas stuff up. You can place your bets in the comments as to when I'm going to take that down, but if you guess before March, you're wrong. Anyway, I got to sit down with Michael Lee again, the master of marketing, who is the marketing manager for Audrey Carlin, a bunch of New York Times bestselling authors, Callie Chase. He's all over the place helping people out. And he's going to talk today specifically about newsletters. I just got mine started, so it's a topic that I really want to get into. There's so many questions that come up when you're starting your newsletter, and I see a lot of writers on the author pages asking questions about how to get their newsletter started, how to get readers to their newsletter, and what kind of content they should have on it. We're going to answer all those questions today. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, because next week I'm going to be back with Michael Lee again, and possibly Callie Chase, and we're going to be doing a live Q&A answering all your questions about anything you want to know about getting started on Bella. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and enjoy the show. All right, so I am here with Michael Lee again. If you're wondering why he keeps coming here, it's because I have him locked in my basement to to make these videos once a week. So he's been providing so much awesome information. So I just keep asking him to come back because clearly the viewers are messaging me all the time about how great he's been. So thank you again for being here, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me back.
And over the last couple weeks, Michael's been helping me build my website and my newsletter, which I just got going. I'll put a link in the description if anyone's interested in that. It's going to be about writing and my stories, so if you like horror, check it out. But I learned a lot about newsletter building through that process, and I want to go over newsletters with you guys today, and we'll even use mine as like a template for what I did right and what I did wrong. So when it comes to newsletters, what do you think is the first thing an author should be looking at in terms of making a newsletter that their reader wants to read?
Right, so newsletters are quite a heavy topic that are going to need. It's about developing a system that you own, and so I wouldn't differentiate too much in terms of the content that you publish on a newsletter from something like social media, the regular content you're putting out there. It does take a very similar approach. The biggest difference is that the interest in you is larger on a newsletter because the commitment is slightly greater. And so content-wise, it's a little bit more aggressive on the all about me than you would get from, say, just a social media presence like Facebook or Instagram. And with that comes a little bit slower in the amount of content you're putting out on the newsletter. There'll be people who will post seven posts a week or more on social media, but doing that in a newsletter will hurt your sender reputation quite quickly, and so I wouldn't recommend it. But the other thing is that the amount of people that are going to open that newsletter, you'll find will be quite small. 20 to 30% is quite a common open rate for newsletters. I've seen people with more and less, but if you have a mailing list of 10,000 people, many authors with that size will only see 2,000 to 3,000 people open it. And so I would say keep the content of the newsletter very focused, very single point focused, rather than you check out this, check out this, check out this. Try to have one purpose to each newsletter, because the majority aren't going to open it. And what you want is a very clear subject heading, a very enticing subject heading to maximize the amount of people that open it. And that when they read that subject heading, what they're getting inside as content is relevant to that subject heading. You haven't swapped out and said, check out Winter's Myths, and then thrown them down a different product. And so there isn't any one specific piece of content that I would say fits a newsletter or doesn't fit a newsletter, but making sure that there's only one piece to each newsletter is more important.
Gotcha. And so you were saying, the difference between the amount of time you post on social media. What do you think is a good amount of newsletters to send out, where your readers will feel that they're getting good quality content as opposed to being spammed?
Sure, I'll tell all of my clients that the number I recommend for almost all of them is twice per week, and that gives many people gulps, because for some it can sound like a lot, and for others it'll feel like I have so much to promote. How can I narrow it down to one thing per email twice per week? And really, what you have is a balancing act between keeping your sender scores as healthy as possible and keeping your emails as frequently occurring and on a regular schedule as possible, so that you don't have fatigue in the subscriber base that you have. If you are silent for a month or two, you're going to find that most people then will be like, when you send out an email 2 months later, who's this person that I've subscribed to? I don't even remember. And so the importance is in the regularity in the publishing schedule, and I go with 2 weeks because it allows for people with heavier content to get enough of that content out, but not so much that they're going to be at risk of spam or getting unhealthy unsubscribes and declining open rates and whatnot. There is a minimum that I'd really set at going with bi-weekly. And that is probably more for the starting out author who doesn't yet have a lot of content to promote, and so they're really just building their brand. Bi-weekly is what I've, in my experience, seen as the absolute minimum time that you can retain some relevancy in people's minds, the 2 week period. Beyond that, 3 weeks or a monthly newsletter seems to deteriorate people's interest in your brand. It doesn't offer much sense of scalability. There are authors who send out monthly newsletters and still have success, so I'm not saying it's impossible, but from what I've seen, in order for you to maintain and then grow an interest base, it's got to be a little bit more frequent than that. And so between that range of bi-weekly to twice per week is where I'd put it at.
So when you're crafting your newsletter, there's a thing called a welcome series, which I'm still learning what that even means or why it's valuable. And I know it's very big in business wise, but I don't know if it is in the writer circle. But what exactly is a welcome series, and what's its purpose?
Excuse me while I just choke. So a welcome series is your first set of emails. I find when someone subscribes to a newsletter, you're going to, if you're just sending out regular old emails, whether it's once a month or whatnot, where in fact, I had a case the other week with an author who was doing this, but they create a campaign or create a newsletter which is an update about what they're doing for this month. And the problem is that you're going to have people joining at different stages of that newsletter's timeline. And so there's no setting the expectation for what this newsletter is. There's no history built with the customer, and what a welcome series is an introduction to the newsletter, a welcoming, and it makes it a little bit more personal for each subscriber. And it just comes off a little bit more polished. And so if you subscribe to authors within your genre's newsletters, you'll probably have seen that for several of them, when you type in your email, hit subscribe, within a couple of hours, you have an email back. And that isn't because the author is sending emails 24/7 to everyone that comes and joins the newsletter, but they have what's an automation essentially in the back end, and you can set them up with templates on all sorts of platforms. It doesn't matter which you use. But this welcome series, this automation triggers as soon as someone types in their email, sends it off to your newsletter. Your newsletter goes, someone's joined. We need to start this automation. And then it goes into the automation, which is, you've called it your welcome series. And you can create these templates for what it sends out. And it can be hi Gage or hi Michael. Thank you so much for joining my newsletter. And within it, you have the greeting, which just welcomes them and sets the expectation. I send emails out every Monday, Wednesday, or twice per week, whatever it is. You set the expectation, and you set the expectation of what the content is as well. So I offer promotions, giveaways. It's kind of an explanation to what they can expect to receive by remaining subscribed. Often in that welcome series, you'll find reader magnets, which is essentially a free incentive or a free read that is given away, is often added into that welcome series at either on the first stage or shortly thereafter. Someone who's subscribed then receives a free read to immediately start reading. One of the important things to include on the very first email you send is a instruction of some sort of what you want them to do next, because a welcome email is great to have where it just greets them. But if they open the email up and just read a bunch of text that says, welcome to the email, here's the expectations, they reach the end of the email and there's nothing else to it but the welcome. And you really miss out on an opportunity there to move people through the funnel further, whether it's a reminder, have you checked out my social medias? Are you following me here, and here? Or I have a YouTube channel, or in many cases, here's the download for the reader magnet. Check out this free sample from me. And the most important part of the welcome series, though, is to keep it timely. And you do not want to send a welcome email a day later or 2 days later after someone subscribed to the email. It needs to be almost as instantaneous as you can get it, so that you're retaining that user's interest in the short time span that they had to decide they were going to subscribe. So a bit of a long answer there. The other thing I'd add for the more advanced people or more experienced people with mailer software is to check out if you can create secondary and third, tertiary reminders of this welcome series and have it go out over multiple days. And I would encourage people to be really conscious of what those open rates are on those secondary and tertiary emails, and if they're necessary, if they're generating a significant uptick in results.
What do you mean by a secondary? Do you mean like just another welcome email?
So the series part of the welcome series is that often it's not just one email that they introduce the reader to their brand over. And many email softwares, they offer you a secondary chance to resend the email to all the people who didn't open it to try and increase open rates, because some people just won't open emails on a certain day of the week because they're flooded with too many of them that they don't get through them all. And some emails just get missed because of the date and time. And so what a secondary or tertiary email does is it's essentially the same email that you sent the first time around, but sent again to the group of people who hadn't yet opened it. And this might sound complicated, more complicated than it is. There's the email software. If you haven't yet checked out the email automations, it's something to really learn as an author. But they make it quite easy to set up for you. It's a few clicks of a button, and then you would just repeat the formula of what that email is. You can also, some authors, when they have bigger followings and more content to share, will actually send second and third emails which are different to the first one, because they want to build a early build up the interest quite fast. And so there'll be, here's a free ebook in the first email, thank you so much for joining. And then in the second email, they want to check that everybody's followed them on social media. And then in the third email, they say, oh, and here's one of my most popular books from the series, yada, yada, yada. And they'll build up this chain that a new subscriber goes through these ones before then they're in the system of the regular newsletter that goes out on the bi-weekly or the twice a week, whatever it is. You don't want to get them into that group of people until they've gone through the stages of what the welcome series is for.
All right. So yeah. So I was talking to a couple authors who they're much more established, and they have dozens and dozens of books to offer. And they were saying their like welcome series is like 5, some of them said 7 emails long. I started with 2. I think that's a good number for me.
Yeah.
So what I did was, in my first one, I like you said, I set the expectation for what they're gonna get, and then I did like a little intro on who I am, and then I gave them the reader magnet, which was a free short story, and said, make sure you click the next one because I'm going to give a sneak peek to my upcoming novel. Got him into the second one, and in that one I did a little more showing off Winter's Myths, my serial, and then gave him the second reader magnet. And what I was surprised to see was that I'm getting more clicks on Winter's Myths than I am on the free story, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
And then from there, once that happens, I get the analytics. It tells me how many people opened it, how many people clicked on things, which things they clicked on, and then it sends. There's like 3 paths. There's like the high engagement, medium engagement, and low engagement. What do I do with that?
Well, some email providers won't even give you that. So it's high engagement, medium engagement, and low engagement is a really, really strong filter to have, because it kind of segregates your audience into, it does segregate your audience into interest levels. And so your high engagers are your most valuable customers. They will be the most likely people to purchase the next product you put out quite soon. And so high engagers, you want to create those filters. There's tagging in email lists as well, which is essentially like a Kindle Vella tag. You can label your series with specific custom things like dragons or whatnot. Having a tag for your email interest, you can label them as interested in Kindle Vella, interested in this specific series. And so the more you can separate out your customers, the more personal the emails you can send, and the more personal the emails are, the better you will find that you perform in general. So the high interest ones, you probably don't want to do it the first time around. They get labeled as high interest. You want to continue to monitor which ones are the most high engaged and which ones are the lowest engaged. The lowest engaged ones, after a certain period of time, you want to follow up with a final kind of email which says, we just want to check that you're still interested in this being a subscriber. And if you are still interested, please just click this button to say that you're still interested. And then those that don't, you remove them off your newsletter. The reason being is it's actually more damaging to have people who just hop on your newsletter and don't interact with it than it is having tons of people on your newsletter, because it kind of dilutes the power, the relevancy of the subscriber list you're building.
And I imagine as you get more subscribers, you're going to be paying higher amounts to be sending that out, so you don't want to be sending it to people more.
And then in marketing and advertising, your newsletter is one of your strongest sources. And if you've got 10,000 people on there, but 2,000 of them aren't even interested, haven't clicked on anything in 6 months, then you've essentially 20% of your marketing efforts that externally will be irrelevant because of those 2,000 squatters, if you like. And so if you just chop that off, those 2,000 off, and had only 8,000, whilst it may seem smaller, the database is 100%, so it's much, much purer. And so you're not going to reach out to people who aren't who are those squatting people on the newsletter. And so that's what those filters do, is the low interest you can start to segregate out and then look to remove, or to reattempt to stimulate interest is the ideal scenario, but remove those that aren't interested. The medium engagers, those who pop in every now and then, are really important to segregate into what they're interested in, because they can quickly become low engagers or high engagers. They're going one or two ways. That it's and the goal is to move them into one of those two sections, ideally into the high engagers. And the way you do that is by making sure that the content they're seeing is relevant to what they came to you to subscribe for. And so if you're finding that these certain group of people are not engaging in this content, don't send them that content anymore. You give them the last chance. But if they're not going to engage in it, the 30th email you send is not going to change their mind in mass. And so it's actually really unhealthy for your mail, your sender score, your sender reputation, which dictates email deliverability. If it gets put in spam, if it gets sent at all, it's really bad to continue to send emails that don't get opened. And so moving those into one of those to the high intent or the low intent is extremely important. And then the high intent is all about, they're the ideal customer. You can send them what they're interested in, and that's where you offer your giveaways, your reviews, your new product releases, your merch store, everything. You want to feed them with the content that they subscribe to you for. And so yeah, that long answer again, but it all comes down to segregating your newsletter and trying to keep it as clean as possible, and keeping those open rates as high as you can get them to.
So looking ahead, let's say I have thousands of people subscribed to my email list, and I've got them into these categories. There's the high engagers, there's the medium engagers. Well, we know that this group right here responds well to my Vela content, and this group right here responds well to my short story content. And you also said earlier that there's, you want to be consistent with your emails and having them come out at a certain amount of time. So it's a new week, and I want to promote Vela. but I only have this one section that's really responding to Vela, and this other section's responding to short stories. Do I make like one email that's varied for, you know what I mean? So when it goes to one person, it has a different content than another.
So I would treat those two. So you have your regular newsletter, which generally goes out to. It depends on your effort level, really. Because some authors will be just fine without segregating their newsletters because the interest across the board is high enough. But if we're talking about Kindle Vella specifically, I'd imagine there's a lot of authors who have a highly engaged newsletters for their books, but don't have them for Kindle Vella. And I know plenty who've talked to me about that issue. There's authors on the other side of the spectrum. Nikki St. Crow has been quite vocal. She's doing extremely well with her newsletter and her following, and I can't imagine that she would want to segregate or change that too much. But what I would say is, if you are struggling, and that there are a large portion of people who aren't engaging in Kindle Vella, and you've sent out 20 emails, first check the product, and reach out to those subscribers and see what you can find out about why it's not engaging them. And that's providing a separate email to the people who haven't opened it with those kind of trying to pull them to the Vella side. But then for the Vella interested users, you should ideally have them tagged as interested in Kindle Vella, so you can send them much more personal emails. The more personal you can make it, the better you're going to do. So yes, I would say if you can and you have the time, do create those marketing emails, which are separate. I know not everyone has that amount of time, and so it's not the end of the world if you can't. But if you're looking to scale and make things more optimal, definitely you'll benefit from separating out those interest lists.
So let's go. Let's stick with serial fiction in particular. What have you seen as a very successful newsletter for serial fiction, for new authors who are really like that's where they're starting, and for authors who are established but not in serial fiction and are moving over to that? What do you think is a beneficial thing to put in your email to try and lure readers towards your serial fiction?
Honestly, there is no secret to what to put in it and what to not put in it. It's not like I can tell you put this button here and then you're going to get more followers, or if you only changed it to sans serif font or whatever.
I'm going to try that.
You're going to best of luck. Let me know how it goes. But there isn't just like something you can put in a newsletter that's going to flip a switch. This is the painful task of being a marketer, which is more than anything just staring at data and seeing if it's improving or not. And it goes back to the conversations we've had before about it's about testing and refining. And with newsletters, it's as opposed to social media, the biggest part of newsletters comes with the deliverability and the being marked your email health scores, essentially. On social media, you can pretty much get away with a post that you can post as many times as you like, and if it only gets seen by 2 people, it only gets seen by 2 people. But on emails, if you send out an email, I'm going to start checking again, and it only goes to, it goes to 1,000 people, but all of a sudden the number of people that are opening it is extremely low, and that continues to happen, then it's going to get very difficult for you to get out of that pit, because your email score is going to go down and down and down, which reduces that deliverability. And so that goes back to the importance of segregating your data, because if you don't segregate it, you're going to continue to harass people about things that they're not interested in your brand. And so the best thing you can do for Vela is to separate your audience in who has read Vela, who hasn't read Vela, and personalize those Vela messages to the Vela readers. That's when you can put in your episode updates. Honestly, those who are benefiting from good healthy newsletters for Vela probably have quite across the board healthy engagement rates already for whatever they post, and because they've got quite an active, well trimmed, well nurtured mailing list that they don't have to worry too much about segregating. But if you're starting out and you've got a list which is kind of fresh, and you've been swapping with lots of different authors, cross promoting, you haven't been really trimming it and fine tuning that newsletter, it's going to be a bit of a journey. And so more than anything, you need to be really patient and really it's like a bonsai tree. You have to really care for it constantly and trim back, otherwise it's just going to die. And so there's no secret sauce, unfortunately, but and it's no different for a big author to a small author. It's just that they're further down in the process of really refining that newsletter.
I feel like when I look at the top performing authors on Kindle Vella, and I look at the reviews that they have, they sort of get a ton of 1-star reviews that say, "I love this story, but I don't like Kindle Vella." Yeah. Which I wish people wouldn't do that.
No, and you can't control it. We've had chats with. I've reached out to the Amazon team about the issue, and we'll see what they do. The reviews team is external to the Vela team. In big businesses, these entities are separate, and so getting them to talk is another thing. I'm optimistic. I hope, because I want the best for the authors I work with and the platform. But it's a real shame about those 1-star reviews.
Yeah.
I wish people could be a little bit more careful with what they put out online, and
So I think when it comes to the newsletter, I don't think it's going to help fix that problem, but I would imagine that really educating the reader on what that platform is going to ask from them might be beneficial. I don't know.
Yeah, so this is an issue I've actually been dealing with the marriage auction, and if you go on that series, you'll see that there's readers from external to Audrey's audience and internal to Audrey's audience. Now, those are the two kind of lenses that I look on things, and you're going to get negative reviews from both sides of the internal and external, and how you deal with them is different. And unfortunately, there isn't a whole lot you can do to remove them or get them to be less frequent, and that is the penalty of being as organically as exposed as we are. But with a newsletter, you can continue to educate. Audrey has a Facebook group that she does wonders with, in that she's continuing to promote Vela, and she's continuing to educate people on and talk about how fun it is. I mean, she loves it, and that's how you manage an internal basis. You just continue to put out the content, and we've seen over time that many of them have come around, listen to it's almost like a tribe, and as that tribe begins to adopt it, others then go from within the tribe who may have looked at it negatively start to see it positively. So internally it's much easier. External, best of luck to you.
Yeah.
Because it's a first impression with lots of people, and if the first impression is bad, it can be very hard to change someone's mind after they formed this concrete belief. And so for other authors, that's why I strongly encourage people to focus on their brand first and Vela second, because it's much easier to build a healthy reputation and then bring them to Vela than it is to just direct them straight to Vela, give them a terrible experience, or one that they perceive as, oh, it costs so much money, yada, yada, yada. It's then going to be very hard to say, oh, well, then just check out my other book
Right.
or subscribe to me. Whereas if you do it the other way around, you have more of a chance because the first impression isn't so bad.
All right, so let's shift gears to bringing people to your newsletter. So what are I know we talked about this in another video. We said Facebook ads is a great method, and then just kind of plastering it everywhere. You also taught me over the last week about the importance of an invisible landing page on your website. So let's say I'm making a Facebook ad. Obviously, I know it's going to be different per genre and per author, but what am I looking to write in that field to draw people into my newsletter? I could picture when I see authors promoting their books or their Vela series, they put like a snippet, like an actual bit from their story, and then at the bottom, where to go.
Yeah. So with advertising, you get the benefit of, again, experimentation, testing, refinement. Marketing a newsletter is no different to marketing anything else when you think about it broadly, which is that you can market it any way you like. You can advertise, you can just word of mouth talk to people about it. You can cross-promote with other authors. There's all sorts of different ways to do it. There are more reliable ways to do it, and there's ways to do it which bring a higher intended customer, a customer with more relevancy to what you want than other methods. Like if to quote you, if we put it up everywhere, what you'll do is you'll scatter it to so many different types of people that you'll suffer from the intent and the interest level, because you can't guarantee that the people subscribing to it are going to be very highly interested in what you're selling. Whereas through something like advertising, you've defined what those parameters are, hopefully with some strong relevancy, and through your ad that you've created, you're clearly communicating what your product is, what your brand's all about, so that the consumers who see that ad and like that ad and responding to it are then going to like the rest of the products that you have. And so advertising, I'm a big fan of advertising, pay-per-click advertising, because I think it's by far the most reliable way to grow and the most accurate way to build up people with the right interest. There are other ways to do it which are for free and still work. They just require a lot more understanding and effort in different ways. And so if we go with the specific lens of advertising, what you're going to want before you even hop into Facebook ads is the reader magnet. That's the free read, because what a reader magnet does is it offers something in exchange for them subscribing to your newsletter. And that's the first mistake I see with people just starting out, is that they don't understand that when you are asking someone to subscribe to your newsletter, you are asking them to give you value. And it's an exchange of goods. And so a consumer just reading subscribe to my newsletter, well, what do I get out of that? Why would I subscribe to your newsletter? You haven't told me. You're just telling me to do something for you. And so subscribe to my newsletter and receive, and you'll get, is a step in the right direction. It immediately tells them, okay, if I subscribe to this newsletter, I will get this. And then beyond that, the next step after that is the reader magnet, which is something you've written which is similar to your other content. Subscribe to my newsletter and you'll receive a short sample of the prequel to this series or whatever. Then they can, when they consume the content, if they liked it, they're probably going to like your other stuff. And finally, the next step after that on the reader magnet is make it free and emphasize that it's free, so that they understand that if they do this action, they're going to get something for what they feel like is a really, really good deal. And so the exchange of goods is you get all of this, and all you have to do is pop in your email. And that's very enticing and has worked in all sorts of different industries. It's not just authors that have reader magnets. It happens in everything. You can type in your email and you'll get these 5 infographics or the top 10 secrets to marketing or whatever. You see it everywhere in all different industries. They do it in cars, flights and travel and everything. But that's the incentive of a reader magnet. What you then do is you build a landing page, which is not the same as just a website page. A landing page specifically is somewhere that it is a link that you set up so that it's intended for only the people who click the link to land on it. And the way you do that is you don't make it appear on your website. You make it unnavigatable too, so that anyone just browsing your website can't hop onto it. But it's part of your URL, and explaining how you do this would be a whole other. I mean, we did it together, and it was a process. But you create a landing page, a subscribers page where you advertise that page where they land on it and they type in their email and then they subscribe to the newsletter. And on the landing page, it's very clear that subscribe to Gage Greenwood's newsletter and you will receive a free copy of yada yada yada. And then you've got to go and market that page. And your goal is to attract the most relevant people to that page as possible. And for me, that's then when I jump to time to start advertising on Facebook ads, because I've found it to be the most reliable, easy way to do it and to scale it as well. And so you hop into your Facebook ads and you market that page. Now, there's multiple different ways you can do it in Facebook ads, and that's an even lengthier topic. I'm already going on quite long on this one. But there's traffic campaigns, there's conversion campaigns, there's all sorts of things you can do with the tool. Being quite broad with your targeting is generally a good idea if you have long-term vision for the plan for advertising, because letting Facebook decide who your audience is going to be far more effective than you picking in specific niche authors. One thing that most Facebook advertisers don't know until they've been advertising long enough is that Facebook never advertises to everyone you tell it to advertise to. And it often only advertises to a small subset of people within that group that it considers to be the most likely to purchase. And so you could have an audience the size of 1 million people, and Facebook will only ever target 100,000 of those people. And if you set your audience size too small, it's even smaller than that. and you limit your the ability to expand from that targeting. So I would encourage people to go quite broad. If you're a sci-fi author, start with sci-fi books. It's as simple as that. Because keep it very, very broad, and have your ad do the work for you. Because most of the time, problems with expensive ads come down to one or two things: the audience you're targeting, or the creative you're using. And so if you get your audience right, or get it close to right, you should, or broad enough that it's going to be somewhat right, you should expect that most, if your ads are still expensive, it's a very clear sign that your creative that you're using, the imagery and the text, is not converting people, or that the page they're going to doesn't resonate as well. So making sure all of that is consistently branded into a similar standard the whole way through the process is then the next thing that you continue to perfect and work on. In terms of what image in text you use, you experiment with it. I know you were saying about authors who have the series description, but that's probably one of many things that they've tested. And for some of them, they found it to work, and others they haven't. And the nice thing about Facebook ads is you can create 10 different ads at the same time, which take the exact same image, and you just change the text. And then what Facebook will do is it will spend the money on the winning ones and not spend the money on the ones that don't work. And so by creating that a variety of testing, you'll begin to learn things that work for you, as opposed to what works. There isn't a thing that works for everyone.
I know that you're saying, try different things. If you were to do the little snippet of a story, is it good to do from your reader magnet? Could you, do a little snippet that ends on like a cliffhanger almost, and then say
that would be a good thing for sure. I would even up it to trying to get the marketing copy. You want text that sells the story rather than text that is the story. Generally speaking, sometimes you can get text that is both, where it's, and when you can do that, definitely do it, where you have text from the within the story that is particularly catching, like with a cliffhanger, but also the first thing people are going to read is not the cliffhanger, but all the text that comes before it. And so trying to make text that hooks people from the beginning. If you read Audrey's description for the marriage auction, it starts with that question of what would you do for $3 million? ... Because that has been great marketing copy, because if we put that on an ad, the first thing people are going to read is a question that gets them interested in thinking about the rest of it, and then the text that comes after that continues to sell the story in a way which is relevant to the story as well. It's not just going if we were talking about features, you wouldn't write a marketing copy that says, for only $2.99 you can read so-and-so story, and it's got 800 pages and 12 chapters. You wouldn't do that. But persuasive language, which talks about hooking the reader's interest on what that story is probably the most effective way to do
it. So let's talk about for the reader magnets. So I use BookFunnel, and the reason that I did that was because I subscribe to a bunch of authors with their newsletter, and some of them, they just give you like a doc file, and I don't know if it's just my personal preference or whatnot, but I don't read it. It just seems so messy. And with BookFunnel, it's cool because you can get the cover and you get this landing page for it. Do you feel that that's a good way to do it? I know some people even will just copy the thing right into the email. I feel like that would just be, I don't know, too much.
But I don't think that there is a right way. I think you're going to have your preferences, which are BookFunnel, and some people are going to have their preferences, which is into the email. What's going to be the case is that it's not about what your preferences are, but what your readers' preferences are. And that you're only going to find out from testing. You're not going to find out because I told you on this YouTube video, or because someone said you should have done it this way. It would be so much more. The more important thing is you understand what you're doing, or the implications of what you do when you do the different versions. And the having it in the email where they click a button and the file's downloaded and they don't go to a page reduces the number of clicks. And so that increases the speed at which someone goes from reading the email to reading the free sample. That's so 1 point for them. But the other thing it does is it decreases the variety of ways in which people can download it. So if they only have one button to click and it downloads the file, they're only going to have it in one format, most likely, unless you've got a very, very advanced setup. The alternative to that is having multiple buttons that are the different files, and then that decreases the professionalism by making it a little bit more messy than it should be. Now, if you've got BookFunnel, you've gone a whole different route, and I've used BookFunnel for many authors and think it's a great solution, where they click the link and then they choose and they select their options on what's quite a professionally designed but standardized website. And so most readers are probably familiar with how to use a BookFunnel page by now. And so when they click on it, they get the option of variety, but the only downside to BookFunnel is you've got to make them click twice.
A lot.
And so
maybe
a bit more than twice. But so that puts up its own barriers. And the important thing is to remember what's the goal, and which one leads to which option has led to the most outcomes that benefit towards that goal. And your goal might not necessarily be to have as many people read that reader magnet as possible. Your goal was to get as many people to sign up to the newsletter and who are as relevant to you and want to purchase from you. And that doesn't mean necessarily optimizing for readers of the reader magnet. It means optimizing for readers of future products. And so it's kind of a hard thing to truly nail down without huge amounts of time and data. So I don't think there's one specific format that's going to lean anyway. The importance is try to keep it as professional as you can, try to keep it as clean as you can and on brand as you can.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about data collecting for newsletters, but before I get to that, in terms of the serial fiction, I was talking to Sophie Davis, who is doing quite well on Kindle Vella, and she was saying that she will sometimes put side stories or stories related to her Vella right in the email, so there's no clicking, there's no it's not even about the engagement per se, it's just about people seeing what her story is and then wanting to go to Vella to check it out. Have you had any experience with that? Or
the only thing I would emphasize, and I'm sure Sophie's doing it, is that with every email you want an action. You don't want an email which is devoid of next steps. And so I'm sure she's doing it at the bottom of the email. Once you finish reading, it's like, you can click this button and it'll take you to your Kindle Vella series. And I absolutely think that's a great idea. I think that probably works very well for her, and would encourage others to do similar. An email needs to serve the purpose of getting the action you want out of it. And so if there's no action, you're not going to get the results you want. But whatever format you decide is most convenient for your readers and seems to work best for you, absolutely try. There may be some, putting the text in email can be one of the most convenient ways to deliver that content and drive the next steps. But it's a hard thing to monitor true interest in the story without, unless she's using a platform which says how long, with like average read times on it as well. It depends on the platform essentially, because there's MailerLite versus MailChimp versus ActiveCampaign versus etc. etc. They're going to offer different amounts of reporting and different types of reporting, and so I'm sure Sophie is doing very well with her mailing list and knows what she's doing. So absolutely try it. Just make sure that you're focused on what the outcome is with every email extended.
So now back to data collecting. We had a very long meeting one night where we were trying to get my my Facebook pixel working correctly, which was my fault, not Michael Lee's fault. He had to walk me through it step by step. Because I don't understand that stuff at all.
It's gotten even lengthier. It hasn't gotten easier.
Yeah. So this goes back a little bit to the value of the landing page. So I'm gonna try and explain this quickly, and you're gonna probably have to correct everything I say. But so the Facebook pixel is a little series of code that you would put into that action of people clicking on the subscribe to your newsletter. And you can put that in multiple places on your website, on the home page, on that landing page. And then Facebook takes that data, and when you start doing Facebook ads, over time, it'll start understanding your audience a little more. Is that correct?
Yeah, almost perfect. So the only thing I would say is that the Facebook pixel doesn't just track, it tracks everything that happens on the website. Is this little snippet of code that you put into the header of your website, and so it appears on every single page, and it's tracking every click, every visit, every play of a video, reading of an article, yada yada, that you have on your website. And then what you do with that is you can go into the Facebook Business Manager, and there's what they call the event setup tool, where they call it events, which is an action that takes place on your website. And so you go through the tool onto your website, and you start taking actions on your website, and then you tell Facebook, this action means they've done this. And so with a landing page, and a newsletter is the topic of the discussion today, you could go onto your website through this tool and click on where people sign up for your mailing list and say, when they do this, this means they've signed up for my mailing list. And so now, every time someone goes to your website and signs up for your mailing list, it's being tracked by Facebook, and Facebook can link those subscribers and those action takers, and also the people who go to the page but don't take that action, and build up this big amount of data that says, we know all of these Facebook profiles, all of these people who are interested in this, and this, all did it, and then the other people didn't do it. And so you can create ads with those, which are called conversion campaigns. Is the term, and a conversion campaign is a ads campaign that uses the Facebook pixel and uses one of the events, in this case signing up to the newsletter, as the goal of the campaign. And so Facebook will, using its machine learning all for you, optimize to get as many of the ads to end up with that result. And so if you're just running a traffic campaign on Facebook, Facebook optimizes to get as many link clicks as you can get. But as many of you might know, a link click doesn't mean that someone signed up for your newsletter or purchased your product. It just means that they clicked the link. And if you aren't being very careful with how you run traffic campaigns, you can get a lot of bots and fake clicks, and it can Facebook can be optimizing it for the wrong thing. And so it's prioritizing getting as many clicks as possible and not subscribers as possible. And so with the conversions, you're telling Facebook, I don't want anyone who's clicking on it and not subscribing. I only want the people who go all the way through to subscribe. And that level of definition reduces costs massively in the long run and adds a level of quality to the traffic you bring in to subscribe to the newsletter. Secondly, after that, is you can build what's called a custom audience and a lookalike audience. Now, a custom audience on Facebook is an audience that's built from data you own. So you can upload your mailing list, or you can use your Facebook pixel and say, anyone who subscribe to my mailing list, anyone who took this action, I want you to take all the events you have on Facebook, and I want you to find all of those people and send ads to them. And that's a custom audience. And then you have a lookalike audience, which is built, it's the next level of complexity, which is built off of a custom audience, which goes, I want you to take this audience of all these people who subscribe to my mailing list, and I want you to find the top 1% of people who look most like those people. And what that does is you can almost forget about what's called interest targeting people interested in, say, science fiction or horror books or romance novels or whatever. And instead, you go and target, I want the people who most look like the people on my mailing list. And you create this little loop of, as you bring more people to your newsletter, it grows the audience, the lookalike audience, which means it's better at finding even more people. And so it's this loop of getting better and better and better and more accurate at the same time. That's a complex, long explanation. There's lots of people who teach you how to do it, but knowing how to set up the Facebook pixel on your website and knowing how to track conversions and then build custom and lookalike audiences will give you a huge leap forward in your Facebook ads efforts.
So let's say we have somebody who's new to all of this, right? And they're building their website like on Wix or Squarespace or something like that. It's difficult, we know that, but is it something that they could figure out, especially if they don't know coding? Like, do they need to know coding to do this, or is it kind of copy and paste? Or
no, you do not need to know coding. If you're using Wix or Squarespace, they have built-in integrations. We did it through my service, which is a little bit more advanced. But with something like Wix or Squarespace, they have a one-click integration where you go through the process, and then it says, do you want to connect this to your website? Yes or no. And then, do you have a Wix or Squarespace website, or this, that, or the other? And if not, click this one. And for us, we had to click if not and do it manually, because that's the way we had it set up for your site. But for something like Wix or Squarespace, you can click a button and then sign into your Wix account, and then it just does it automatically for you.
Awesome. I think that's all that I have for today. I do want to say that if you don't have a Michael Lee building these sites for you, he does have a website called Book GENIE that you should absolutely check out. There's free courses on there. He teaches a lot about marketing. He does it with Callie Chase, so she talks a lot about writing and editing. So you can pretty much get everything you need to get started as a writer from Book GENIE. It's $4.99 a month, and you will find your value in that on the first day. And he posts things like, hey, I have some time to build some websites, and you can get his service through that. So I highly recommend you check that out, and I'll have a link in the description for it if you do want to. There's a lot of great authors on there, especially Vela authors, building a really big community, so check it out. Anything you want to add, Michael?
No, we have a newsletter course actually coming out very, very shortly. So if if you want a more in-depth walkthrough of the process from absolute beginner to getting yourself set up for growth, it is coming very soon to Book GENIE. There's also courses, a course about to drop in less than a week on copy editing. So we do both sides, both marketing and writing. And if anyone's interested in the process of websites like I've done for you, they can absolutely reach out to me either through Book GENIE or through my other channels on Facebook and our website too.
And I'll put links to all of that in the description. And next week, me and Michael will be live with hopefully Callie Chase. We'll see if she is extremely busy, so hopefully she'll be there. And make sure you hit like and subscribe so you can watch that when we do it live. We're going to be answering all your questions about everything you want to know about publishing on Vella and writing and editing and marketing. So make sure you check that out, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.